It isn't necessarily something that's directable the way most organizations, you can like pivot, have a strategy, follow a plan, et cetera. And that chaos was somewhat problematic. That said, a lot of creativity, a lot of potential, a lot of encouragement for doing new things, lots of rewards for it. This is partly to reflect the CEO at the time, the sort of personality of the CEO, which has a lot of impact. Doesn't have to be. Cultures are sometimes defined top down, sometimes not. So that's one example. The other typical one that you see is a whole lot of risk aversion. So the people using creativity to solve problems only when they have to. They're facing this problem. Manager never told them how to solve it. They're scared to ask. So this is when they deploy their creativity. So it's very sort of hushed and not rewarded. But the results they produce are improvements in efficiency, or improvements in costs, or something else like that. So you have these highly risk-averse giant corporate cultures. That's another very common sort of style of creativity that you'll find. In those, what we would do is if you're training sort of frontline people, you would teach them to build credibility with their bosses, managers, colleagues around particular ideas. You would teach them to do stealth innovation. They would be doing it, without some top-down, strategy in place. And that's okay. It's a good way to start. If you're seeking to really be a disruptor, to really be a big disruptor in your marketplace, then that's not going to cut it. But it's a useful way to invite sort of frontlines to start. If you're working with executives top down, then you do something else. Those are two examples.
Yeah, I totally understand what you're saying. And you mentioned creativity several times. Do you think it's so important for innovation, and why?
Yeah, creativity is the core of innovation. Creativity is something we're all born with. It can look different from person to person, but that's what makes it beautiful, what makes it work. It gets punished, as we've talked about, in schools traditionally. As you go through an education process, it's always recoverable. It's always there. And creativity is a set of skills, because we use that word when we're talking about 1 skill, 2 skills, 10 skills. It's really hard to sort of pinpoint. So let's say creativity is a capability. It's a group of skills that you can deploy, including thinking differently, like asking questions that don't typically get asked. That might be a specific part of creativity. Another part might be imagination and the ability to generate lots and lots of ideas or possibilities. That's another kind of component of it. Another one might be identifying assumptions that you have and breaking or changing those assumptions so that you could take a new perspective or think outside the box. These are sort of phrases we use. And they all lump under this phrase, creativity, and they're all generative skills. So creativity is a generative capability that we have. We use it to generate new perspectives, to generate new ideas, to generate different styles of thinking, et cetera. So it's a set of skills that we all have. We're born with them to an extent, and you can train them and make them better. Like you can train the individual skills and get better at them. And they're all quite generative. If you understand creativity, you also, by extension, understand critical thinking. Critical thinking is that thing we were all taught in school. And, if we passed our classes, we understood. Critical thinking is the reductive approach, the deductive approach. It's you look at all that giant pile of ideas you generated and you go, which ones are most likely to work? Let's evaluate these. Let's rank these. Let's select the ones that work the best. Let's think, which of these possibilities is the root cause of the problem? This one, most likely. Okay, let's work on solving that one. Critical thinking in this way is directive, is reductive, is evaluative, is selective. So in the psychology literature, you will find the words divergent thinking and convergent thinking. In layman's terms, you find the word creativity or creative thinking and critical thinking or evaluative thinking or something like that. And we're really talking about that going out, go back in, go back out, go back in. So generate lots of possibilities, pick the ones that work best. Generate lots of possibilities, pick the one that works best. I call that the heartbeat of creativity, or the heartbeat of innovation.
Yeah, it reminds me of my first degree is in design, my second degree is in cognitive science, and I always love to learn about it. So I heard the podcast not long ago, and he mentioned about researching very creative, artistic people, and they measured their brain creativity and capabilities, and what are the structures that are working in the brain while they're creating something. Let's say I write a new poem, whatever. So these people are aware of the capacity of going outside, searching for the ideas and going and looking for things and then creating and then coming back to where they're doing and then fixing it, which is very, very similar to what you're saying. Like you go outside and you have so many ideas, but in the end you need to be critical about your creation. And what they are different from other people is that they can do it in parallel. So they can do both things really fast, going from being very open-minded to being very critical. And this is the way that they create music and poems and literature and whatever, and songs and all of that.
Yeah, the science around this is fascinating. So when we teach this stuff and